Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. This is Lori Smith on Blog Talk Radio. Good evening. It is 10:30 p.m. here in Calgary, Alberta, Friday night, August the 12th. This is Child Abuse Prevention is Up to Us, and it's a 30-minute live internet streaming radio broadcast from blogtalkradio.com. And chat room's open. I did pop the link in what I would talk about tonight, looking at RAIN's information, RAIN, R-A-I-N-N. And, thanks, everybody, for being here. Just appreciate everybody who's tuning into my shows. I almost have like 35,000 shows listened to. That's a lot of shows. I've done about 780 shows, somewhere around there. That's a lot of shows. I was hoping to do 1,000 shows by November, but I don't think I'll be able to get quite that many done. But I've been, November of this year will be 2 years that I've been on Blog Talk Radio, just talking every day or almost every day. And so I appreciate everybody who's taken the time to listen to me. You basically have spent 2 years with me, and this has been my healing journey. It has everything to do with my healing journey. I needed to be able to raise my voice, and I really wanted to be able to share with people what I've been through and what I know so many people have been through, and information. Hopefully survivors are finding, some of the stuff helpful. Hopefully other people that don't know a whole lot about abuse are finding some of the stuff helpful. That was really my main goal when I first started doing Blog Talk Radio, in November 2009, was just to be another resource for people, for survivors and also for the public regarding, child abuse and the issues that surround it. So thanks, everybody, for tuning in. I appreciate it. I'm tired, as most people can tell, and I've been talking for 2 years straight, and I'm pretty tired. You know what I mean? Like I don't know, even if I do, I'm thinking about cutting the shows back eventually, just doing a few shows a week. And but I still want to do the shows, and I still want to keep doing some shows because this is really part of my healing journey, And so it's a huge part of my healing journey, if not everything to do with it. Just being able to voice what I need to say, and hopefully, years down the road, these shows will still be here, and people years from now will be able to tune in and just be one more voice, out here speaking out against child abuse and standing up for what is right, which is the protection of children, and just speaking out about my own story. You know what I mean? Like, hopefully somebody will find some hope in that. You know what I mean? Like, I've really come a long way in 4.5 years from being suicidal to somebody who now wants to live and wants to enjoy this life and cares about myself. I'm really working on changing a lot of the behaviors that I had because I was abused as a child, and this is my healing journey, right? So I appreciate everybody. I can't even thank you enough. I don't even know who most of you are who are listening. I know a handful of the people who are listening are my friends, and I appreciate you all being here with me for this. Because I don't have a lot of local support. And so, you really are mean a lot to me, and I appreciate it. And all the people that I don't know, who are tuning into my shows, and I tell you, I can't even tell you how much I appreciate it, taking the time to listen to what I have to say. It means a whole lot to me, and I thank you very much. So tonight I want to talk about effects of sexual abuse. And I'm focusing on sexual abuse right now, and that's just child sexual abuse. And that's because I'm dealing with this portion of my healing journey, right? The sexual abuse I suffered as a child. So it's important for me to talk about it. It's important for me to voice my feelings on it, and also just promote and provide some information for people out here who may not know that there is such good information out here about child sexual abuse, especially for survivors. There's a whole lot of information out here for us, and we just have to search it out, seek it out, and start getting involved. I belong to an anonymous Survivors of Incest group, and online. It's online, and so therefore I just, it's not a local support, but it's better than nothing, and it does help me to be able to talk to people who know what I'm talking about, know where I've been, and know what I've been through. And so it is helpful, to get some help, even if it's just anonymous support, right? Because it does allow for you to be able to say what you need to say and get some resources, get some help. So in whatever way you get help, make sure you do get help. RAIN, R-A-I-N-N, that's Abuse and Incest National Network, and that's www.rain.org. They have a great website. I love their website. They have all kinds of great information on here, and they're really working hard trying to stop, sexual violence, sexual assault, sexual crimes, incest, rape, abuse. They're trying to stop that, and this is a great website. So I hope everybody will come and check it out. But I wanted to look at their effects of sexual assault on their actual website. And they talk just briefly, there's a whole lot more information as you click on their links. But when you go to the effects of sexual assault on their website, you can see they've got listed here everything to do with like post-traumatic stress disorder, substance abuse, adult survivors of childhood sexual assault, sleep disorders, eating disorders, self-harm, self-injury, and you can click on those links and it'll take you to to the actual page with all that information on it. So there is a lot of information here, and I hope people will check it out. Body memories, Stockholm syndrome, depression, dissociative identity disorder, DID, sexually transmitted infections, suicide, military sexual trauma, flashbacks, pregnancy, borderline personality disorder, BPD, and adult survivors of childhood sexual abuse. They have that in a couple different places. But this is some really good information, and they were talking about, like, for instance, just starting at the top, post-traumatic stress disorder, survivors of sexual assault may experience severe feelings of anxiety, stress, or fear, known as post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, as a direct result of the assault. Any kind of traumatic experience can cause PTSD or PTSD for like symptoms. Trauma is hard to deal with, especially for children, but even for adults. If the adults in car wrecks or natural disasters, things like hurricanes and tornadoes and stuff like that, those type of things can cause PTSD. An illness, just about anything that's traumatic that happens to a person can cause PTSD or PTSD disorder, right? And adult survivors of childhood sexual abuse, they have the long-term effects on survivors and, who have been, sexually assaulted or from child sexual abuse, right? They have information on substance abuse, eating disorders, body memories, which is really something that I'm kind of working on. Body memories are when the stress of the memories of the abuse experienced by an individual take the form of physical problems that cannot be explained by the usual means. And things like depression, suicide information, really good stuff. So there's one section out here I wanted to look at tonight, and this is the adult survivors of childhood sexual assault, and that's looking at the long-term effects, right, of childhood sexual assault. And survivors of childhood sexual abuse experience an array of overwhelming and intense feelings, and these may include feelings of fear, guilt, and shame, right? So I'm just going to read through some of this here that they have written here about adult survivors of childhood sexual abuse. And, this is really something that so many people would go through, because 1 in 3 girls and 1 in 4 boys will be sexually abused in some way under the age of 18. Now, that's the facts. That's just what's reported. It used to be they used to go by the stats that from the numbers that were coming in, 1 to 3 to 4 girls and 1 in 6 to 7 boys would be abused sexually under the age of 18. But they've changed those numbers, which is really sad, because I wish they had gone the other way, because it's actually getting worse, or there's just more people reporting it, one or the other. But there's they say that the stats now are 1 in 3 girls, or 1 in 2 to 3 girls, and 1 in 4 boys will be sexually abused in some way under the age of 18. So whether that's unwanted sexual touching, exploitation, online exploitation, molestation, rape, sodomy, you name it. So adult survivors of childhood sexual abuse, there's just so many of us out here, and that's why I choose to talk about this stuff, and I really want to go public. I will be doing public speaking, and that's what I'm going to be doing here in the next few years. What I'm doing right now is preparing to go on national speaking tours. So, I'm actually, this is what I'm getting ready and geared up to do. And so, I like to talk about this stuff, because this makes me incredibly angry that society likes to keep shoving this under the carpet like it doesn't exist or something, right? When we know that 1 in 3 girls and 1 in 4 boys will be sexually abused in some way under the age of 18. So, if I know 3 girls or 3 women, then I know 1 at least will have been sexually abused under the age of 18, if not more. And if I know 4 men, I know that 1 of them, at least 1, will have been sexually abused under the age of 18. This is quite tragic. It's very, very sad and wrong and twisted that so many people think that it's okay to sexually use children, and even other children do. You know what I mean? Other adolescents and preteens, teenagers. Young people will sexually abuse children too. So it's not just adults that are doing this, but the people that know better, the people that should know better, are the adults, and older teens. People who should know. They've been on the planet long enough to know that it's wrong to sexually use a child in any way. And I don't care what way it is, whether it's molestation, whether it's exploitation, whether it's unwanted sexual touching, lewd acts with a child. I don't care. Rape, sodomy, I don't care. It's all wrong. It's got to stop. And I'm going to keep on talking, because we need more voices out here. We really do. We need everybody's voice in on this. This is not okay. It never was okay. It's been going on for, since time began. People have been using children sexually since time began. Thing is, does that mean it's right? No, it doesn't. It means that we finally come to a place that says we have laws against this. It is a crime to sexually use a child in any way, shape, or form. You know what I mean? And thank God for those laws. And I'm willing to stand up and back them up. And I think we need stiffer penalties. I think we need harsher sentencing. I really do. And I think people just need to stop using children for their sex toys. There's adults, go and be with other adults and leave the kids out of it. Children do not need to be used as sex toys. This is just ridiculous. And children just should be allowed to me. This is what makes sense. And I'll just throw this out here since this is my show and I can do whatever I want. That, children, little children and children, period, should be allowed to explore their own sexuality on their own good time. Right? So when they grow up with their peers and they decide that they want to start, exploring their own sexuality and seeing what that whole part of their world is like and what it will be, that's fine. Children exploring their own sexuality on their own good time with their own peers, that's normal. But adults using children sexually, that's not right. And I will never agree with it, and I will sit here and speak out against it until the day I die, because I have nothing better to do with my time, as people can tell. It's obvious that this is very important to me. I do have other things that I do, you know what I mean? Like, I'm always studying something, and I have a sweetheart, and I've got cats, and I've got a cat, and I've got a bunny, and it's not like I don't have a life, right? The issue is that with my spare time, this is what I choose to do, because we can't talk about this enough, and we can't make enough noise about this. This needs to be screamed out on loudspeakers to the public. No more, no more. Children are not sex toys. Leave the kids out of it. You go find something else to use. But there's a whole lot of people out here that want to use children sexually. I know. My brother used me sexually. So there you go. And the thing is, he was 13 years older than me, a 21-year-old man, right? This makes me sick that this was allowed to go on. My mother knew about it, didn't do anything about it to stop it, right? And society, same thing. Society knows about child sexual abuse, and society says, oh, well, we don't care. It's not our problem. You know what? That's what my mother told me. That my mother told me, oh, it's not my problem. That's your problem. You deal with it. Wrap yourself up like a mummy. I asked her, I said, what should I do? Because she said, well, you deal with it. That's not my problem. And I said, well, then what do I do? Right? Because I was like, what the heck? She's going to leave me to be raped and sodomized by my 21-year-old brother. I'm like, well, what can I do? And she's like, well, wrap yourself up like a mummy when you go to bed at night. That was her answer. My mother was beating the shit out of me, so I really didn't push it with her. You know what I mean? And I wasn't going to get any help. I knew that. But I thought I'd tell her anyway because I was in so much pain and bleeding profusely because I was raped and sodomized. And so I thought, well, and I had been used sexually for probably a period of about 3 weeks. I finally decided to break down and tell her, and then I got the answer of wrap yourself up like a mummy. Now, my mother knew I was being sexually used by my brother and did nothing about it. And this is the issue. Society knows that children are being sexually used by adults and other people that should not be. This is wrong. This is so wrong. And yet they don't care. They're just like, whatever, it's not my problem. So every time we turn a blind eye, we're telling these kids, well, we don't care. It's not our problem. Just wrap yourself like a mummy. Try to protect yourself. How can a child protect themselves against an adult who wants to sexually use them? I was tied up. I was bound and gagged, right? Because I bit my brother. So that stopped that. So I was gagged and I was tied up. And I was sexually assaulted, raped and sodomized, and used sexually for months. And this is not okay. And this will never be okay that even a 21-year-old brother would be sexually inclined to use his 8-year-old little sister to get off on. Now, I'm sorry, this is so wrong. This has got to stop. And this is what's going on out here right now tonight. There are people out here, there are moms and dads, brothers and sisters, aunts and uncles, cousins, grandparents, friends of the family, other people sexually using children. Why? I will never understand it. I will never understand what is wrong with these people's minds. They are obviously sick and twisted. Well, my brother was psychologically ill. And, I mean, he spent a year in depression in his room and never came out of his room for like a year. And he had so many psychological problems, and he was diagnosed with psychological problems. And yet my mother did nothing about it. Well, my parents were the cause of psychological problems as far as I'm concerned because they were our abusers, right? But the thing is I don't care. There's no excuse for that. There's no excuse for abuse. There will never ever be an excuse for abuse in my books. And I tell you what, I'm going to write so many books. I tell you what, I'm going to continue to write, and I'm going to be as obnoxious as I possibly can be and get as much noise made about this, because this is not something that we can keep putting in a pretty box with a pretty ribbon on it just so the public will buy into it. That's what I've heard, from many, many people recently is, well, we have to make it so pliable and acceptable to the public, so we have to kind of sugarcoat it. We have to kind of put a ribbon on it because nobody wants to see the abuse. I didn't want to see myself being raped and sodomized either. I tell you that. You know what I mean? I did not like seeing my own blood on my own body. Right? No, I didn't like that. And I didn't like being beaten by my mother either, right? And burned and tortured and told off and cussed at and spit at and kicked around. No, I didn't like that. You know what I mean? There's no way you can put a pretty bow around that. You know what I mean? So the public just needs to wake up and stop being such babies about this and realize that this crap is going on. And little children's lives are depending on us being real. And if we're not going to be real, we're never going to stop child abuse. So I'm not on for this sugarcoating, put it in a pretty box thing, as most people know. You know what I mean? And this is absolutely ridiculous. And yet the public, everybody out there, that really, I mean, not everybody. I'd say about 80% of the advocates out here say, oh, well, but we have to make it pretty so that, the public will pay attention to it because the public doesn't want to see this stuff. I don't care if the public wants to see this or not. I didn't want to see myself being raped and abused. That's what I'm saying. I had to see this. I had to witness this. I was my own witness, and I had other witnesses too. But the issue is that I didn't like that. You know what I mean? I was forced into that, and so the public needs to stand up and start protecting children and start dictating where this money's going to go, where this funding's going to go, and how these laws are going to go. And how the sentencing's going to go. We need stiffer penalties. We need stricter laws. We need better rules for child protection and child sexual abuse protection. We need more done. See, right now you can rape a child. You can do anything you want to a child, and you're only going to get you're only going to get a minimum sentence. You're going to walk in a couple of years. I got a life sentence. You know what I mean? I got a life sentence from my parents, first of all, from the abuse that they put me through, and I got a life sentence from my brother, who decided to sexually use me at 8 years old. Right? I mean, I can't have children. I can't bear children. My body will not do it. And they told me that when I went to the gynecologist when I was about 21 years old. They said you've been sexually abused. Your body will probably not be able to hold a child. You will not be able to have a child. They said, we doubt you'll even be able to get pregnant. But if you do manage to get pregnant, your body will probably not carry that child. And that's my life sentence, right? So these people that walk, and they get away with it. Well, my abuser brother committed suicide at the age of 33. There you go. But the issue is my abuser mother's dead, right? So what are you going to do? But the thing is like, people are walking. They're killing their kids and they're walking in a few years. And there's people out here raping and sodomizing and molesting, sexually abusing children, and they're walking in a couple of years. If they get a fined at all, if they get any sentencing at all. Some of them are walking free. No time served. And these children get a life sentence. See, so that's why I have nothing better to do with my time, with my spare time, than make noise about this. Because this is absolutely wrong. It's got to stop. And we need a national outcry. We need people to get so angry about this that they're willing to stand up and say, enough is enough, no more. We got to hit up Washington, D.C., we got to hit up Ottawa, Canada, we got to hit up the governments, and we got to say, this has got to stop. Let's stop it. You know what I mean? But they won't do it because they realize that the public doesn't care about it. And so they just do the minimal, you know what I mean? It's like, okay, well, since the public doesn't seem to care that we're losing so many children a year, and that so many children are being abused and molested and raped and whatnot, since the public doesn't really care, let's put that money somewhere else. And that's exactly what's happening. because people will not stand up. They don't have the balls enough to stand up and say that child abuse is wrong. See, I know that most people can't even say the words because they can't form them in their mouth. The reason I know this is because what I do, I'm an advocate, so I go around, I hand people my card, and I say, well, this is what I do, I work to prevent and stop child abuse. Most people say, child abuse? They can't even say the words. They're so petrified to say the words. And it's like that, this is why I say the words. Because this is reality. And this is being real, not hiding behind some sort of fancy bows and packages. This is the reality that these kids are going through right now, and we need to make some changes, right? This just really makes me mad. But anyway, I'm off on a tangent here tonight. But anyway, yeah, this is the issue. They said survivors of childhood sexual abuse experience an array of overwhelming and intense feelings. And these may include feelings of fear, guilt, and shame. And abusers have been known to tell children that it is the fault of the child that they're abused, shifting the blame away from the abuser where it belongs, and placing it on the child. And along with this, abusers may threaten or bribe the child into not speaking up, convincing the child that he or she will not be believed, right? Now, my brother threatened me with sodomy because my brother sodomized me, and it hurt so incredibly bad that he said, if you tell, then I'll do it again, and I'll do it every night. And so I was petrified because I was in so much pain from being sodomized and then raped that I didn't say a word for about 3 weeks probably, after about three more sexual assaults, which I was still bleeding from, And I thought, man, I don't care. There was no loyalty there. You know what I mean? I was like, well, my brother obviously doesn't love me. He just hurt me. So, I'm telling. So I told my mother, and I wasn't expecting much because she was my main abuser, but I was hoping she would help me. My dad was mentally ill trying to kill himself on the freeway, so that didn't do any good to tell him. My older sister was beating on me all the time, so I said, forget that. And my other brothers were also high and passed out all the time. I was like, well, there's no chance of that. And so there you go, right? I told the one person that I thought maybe might help me, and got nowhere. You know what I mean? So, threats are a big issue. The abusers will threaten the child, right? And sometimes they'll just threaten them with the fact that, well, the family will be broken up if they tell. Well, if you tell, then I'll have to go away and you'll break the family up and the family will be mad at you, putting the guilt on the child, right? So many survivors have to deal with that. The reaction of a survivor's friend and family to the disclosure of the abuse also has the potential to trigger immense feelings of guilt, shame, and distrust, particularly if those individuals denied that the abuse was taking place or chose to ignore it. That's what happened to me. I mean, I told my sister December of 2010, I believe it was, 2009, I disclosed to my sister of December 2009 that I was sexually used by her brother, and she didn't say a word to me. Not one word. She didn't say, I don't believe you. She didn't say, oh, I'm sorry, that's terrible, let me hug you. She didn't say, oh my God, that's horrible. She just sat there and looked straight ahead and said absolutely nothing. I have zero support from my family, right? But I'm not surprised. I mean, they're so dysfunctional and in denial and abusive anyway, so whatever. But, this is just really sad that this happens to children. There will not be anybody there to support them. You think abusive families are there to support the children that they're abusing? That's the big joke of this whole thing. So since I'm on a bit of a rant here, I may as well keep on going. The issue is that abuser families don't support the children. And it's not going to happen. You're not going to find a child who's being abused who's going to be able to go to one of the family members and say, can you help me? Because the family's going to be so screwed up from the dysfunction and the abuse that they're not going to get that child any help. You know what I mean? No, because they're being abused, right? So it's not like they're going to step up and do anything about it, Or the shame of the whole thing might just be too much for them to bear. What would the people from the church say? I mean, what would the neighbors say, right? It's like, so no, they just let the child continue to be abused. Well, this is the sort of thing that goes on all the time. And, it's just ridiculous that people would think that an abused child's going to get any support from their immediate family. It's not going to happen. And that's why society needs to step in. And that's why it is our place to do it. Because we know that these kids out here who are being abused, there's not going to be anybody stepping in for them. Nobody's going to be getting them any help. Half of the neighbors hear them screaming and crying, and they're not going to do anything about it. Neighbors used to see my mother beating me out in the front yard. I mean beating me with bloody, right? I'm not talking a spanking on the butt, man. I'm talking she'd be beating me and kicking me and cursing me and spitting on me and just beating me to a pulp, And the neighbors would sit there and watch, like it was some sort of Friday night something to watch on TV or something, Like my people knew what my parents were doing to me and to my other siblings, and they did absolutely nothing about it. Right. Social services knew what my parents were doing to us. They didn't even do anything about it. Right? So there you go. Children need help, man, and it's up to us. You hear a child, you suspect child abuse, you can do the right thing. You make the phone call. You could save a child's life, right? You know a child's being abused, and you don't make the phone call, you deserve to go down with the abuser because you're not doing the right thing by that child. It's up to the sane individuals within the home to get the child some help. My mother, if she had any kind of a heart at all, even though she had already been abusing me, should have just, should have said, look, to my older brother, look, like the damage was done. I was already raped and sodomized, you know what I mean? Like, what are you going to do, right? But the issue is that she could have pressed charges for me on my behalf. And then my brother would have had to do time, and he would have had to do some counseling and therapy and psychotherapy and stuff. That would have been good, maybe even saved his life. But he ended up killing himself at the age of 33. So what are you going to do? Then I wanted to kill myself all the way up until I was 41. So there you go, right? But my family's suicidal. My dad was trying to kill himself. He tried to kill us, suicide kill, kill his kids with suicide type thing, driving us over a cliff and stuff. Like my parents were suicidal, and so we were all suicidal too, right? That's the way it goes. So they said, well, each individual's experiences and reactions are unique. There are some responses to child sexual abuse that are common to many survivors, and that is low self-esteem or self-hatred, which I totally know all about. Survivors may suffer from depression. I don't have clinical depression, but I'm able to pull myself out of small bouts of depression, which is wonderful. It makes me happy because I don't spend all that much time in these little funks. I have in the past. I spent periods of time, but it was normal. It was kind of natural, like losing my baby, like losing family members and stuff, and just that type of thing, right? But I've always been able to pull myself out, and I think it's my will, my fight to live, because I was almost born dead because I was born preemie baby, premature, about 2.5 months early, almost 3 months early, because they had to take me out because I was almost dying, and my mother was in a coma, almost dying, and so they took me out, put me in an incubator, and then I had to fight to live in that home. I had to fight just to stay alive, just to keep my sanity, really, and also just to so that I wouldn't go and kill myself. So I've had a huge fight a huge fight in me to stay alive and to keep going, even though part of me wanted to kill myself. The other part of me kept saying, no, we just have to keep going. You know what I mean? So it's incredibly hard. I know what it's all about, and for anybody out there, if you're listening and you're a survivor and stuff, there is help out there. And it is ultimately up to us to get that help. We can't expect somebody else to do it for us because they won't. We have to do it. And we have to care enough about ourselves. And you know what? I do care about myself. Like, I know I didn't deserve any of that abuse. I didn't deserve any of that abuse from my parents and from my brother or from any of my other siblings. Like, I deserved so much better. You know what I mean? And so now I'm making that happen for myself. You know what I mean? And it's a great feeling because I'm finally starting to get myself together and learn that, wow, I do love myself. I do care about myself. I do want to be here, and I want to have a good life. And I never deserved any of that. You know what I mean? And so it's a really good feeling. So I just want to encourage other survivors. Just make sure that you look for the help where you can find it. You reach out to whoever you can find. If you can't find somebody to talk to, the next best thing is call a crisis line. Call one of those those crisis lines or link lines, that can help you find some support, right? Because, you need to fight this. You need to stay. You need to stick around. You need to get better, get well. To me, what it was when I decided to go on my healing journey and not think about planning my suicides anymore 4.5 years ago, was a slap in my parents' face. It was a slap in my brother's face. It was like, you know what? I win this fight. Ha ha. I win because I'm going to have a good life. And you all died in a hell and misery. And I climbed out of that pit of hell. And I'm now going to have a good life and help other people. So that's a slap in their face. I actually win this fight. I hope that you will do the same thing, right? Have a great night, everybody. Have a good weekend. I'll be back around next week on Monday morning, one child abuse survivor to another. And we'll just continue looking at Robert Burney's web pages. He's got some great stuff there. I hope you all get something out of that. And take good care of yourselves. Have a good weekend. Be safe in everything that you do. Think about what you're doing and be safe and take good care. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.